Tonight we're going to talk about HTML5, what's new with HTML5. Once that downloads. So this is actually what's actually new in HTML5. There's a lot of new input elements to make HTML5 easier to code. In the past we had an input element which is really just text, and any sort of validation you wanted to do, you had to do yourself in JavaScript. But there's a couple of new things added which are nice, a bunch of different types of input elements. Also something called, and these input elements become self-validating, something called a placeholder, which we'll see, and auto-complete input elements. Some very helpful. So some of the new input elements, and unfortunately not all these are actually implemented just yet in the newest browsers, but we'll look at what we can. There's the color input type, which we'll see what that does. That will ultimately give you some sort of palette, color palette to pick colors. There's a date time local, and we'll see some examples of all of these. Email, which will validate for valid email type input. Month, number, range, numeric range. Search, telephone, time, URL, and week. We'll see how each one of these works. And there are some others as well, including a data list element, and then also some things to the actual page, in addition to the input items. Header element, we'll look at some of these here, of either existed or they're either new or they have modifications to it. So first let's look at the new ones. There again, HTML5 itself is not actually even finalized. So obviously everything that we show here, a lot of it is not universally supported by all the browsers. But you're kind of learning ahead of a lot of people. The first one is color, which we're not going to have. Let's see over here. And we'll see some of our new input types. And unfortunately, color is not implemented by anyone yet, so there's not much to show you. But there is a plan to implement it. There are some screenshots of how they plan on implementing it, which we'll look at. Right now, you'd have to enter a hexadecimal code. Now, for some of these, they're going to work really well. The date input type, for example, is going to force you to enter in a valid date type. Eventually, this is going to have a calendar control, although it doesn't have it yet. Date time will validate input for you to year, month, day, and then time, hour, minute, second as well. And date time local. So this date time would be probably usually Greenwich Mean Time. And local would be your local time. And the email will validate it that it looks like a valid email. And placeholder is something where you can actually put something in there, and it's not really in there as a value, it's just in there as sort of like a hint. And in this case, it would be name@domain.com. If we look at what we've got here so far, you'll see that we've got under email. Well, that's interesting. Okay, it didn't show it to you, but it's because I'm in Internet Explorer. Let me actually go and look at Google. Will be the best one to do a lot of this stuff with. I hope I have Google on this computer now that I think of it. Safari would also be a good one to use. Safari's pretty good as well. You know what? I don't think I've got Chrome on this one. It's on my laptop, but not on this. Oh, here we are. Google Chrome. I think I've got it. Okay, so here's Google Chrome. Actually, it looks like Google Chrome does implement this already. See how I clicked on it and we can select a color? That's unusual, and that must be the latest change. Also, looks like they implemented the calendar control. Okay. So as you can see, there's Google Chrome, and if we look at IE, and I think I'm running the latest version of IE. Where do we get that from? Tools, Internet Explorer. And I'm running 9, which is the latest version. You can see it has no support for any of those special fields. So, Google is kind of a wash. Not sure about Opera. Of course, I have Safari as well. Take a look at each of those. Okay, so it's interesting that if we look at Google, Google's got wide support for these, although not date time. Email, I believe it does the validation on submission, not on anything else. If I just say open with Safari, if it'll work better. Opera, by the way, seems to have pretty good support. Here's Opera. Okay, so here's Safari. No support for color. And date and times seem to be like this. Now, I'm not sure I've got the latest version of Safari here, so that could be an issue too. I don't use it as much as I used to. But here's Opera. Opera seems to have pretty good support, even for date time. Okay, so month. It's got some pretty nice controls there. IE's got nothing. Google doesn't have all the support, but then again, I'm not really sure that I've got the latest version of Google. I need to check on that. Let's see how Firefox does with this stuff. Firefox, I think I'm pretty up to date on it. Firefox used to be my favorite browser for a long time. It doesn't, but apparently not. Well, let's stick with Google for now. Okay, so we see what a lot of these input tags do. What they do is they restrict the input to, they do a number of things. First of all, they streamline it, which is nice, making it easier for you to do the input. It also does validation, because if you're limiting someone to a certain format, they really have to use that format. Um, Here's the range tag, numbers. You can only enter numeric values. So this limits greatly the amount of validation you have to do in JavaScript when you actually submit this stuff. And we'll talk about validation a little bit later. But that's often been a big deal. And Opera seems to have the most support right now. So you can see how some of them work. The type in the input items, number, range. We can also kind of see how this works. One of the things I really like about Opera, by the way, is when you go in and you view the source, it actually will let you edit it. I think it's the only one that gives you edit mode on a source. So I'm going to go ahead and we're going to make the action here. My website again and show you. And we're going to take a look at this and see what it does. This is the same little PHP thing that I did last week. And I actually changed it and made it a little bit better so that it will send any data that you give. It doesn't matter, where the data comes from or not. Okay, now here's one issue. The email address. Let's see if we got this right. What was it? That PHP test mail. Okay. It's going to mail it to whatever. Okay, whatever says the email address. All right. So that should work, and that's test mail. Yeah, test mail. Okay. So if we go back here, this will have the changes. Whatever date I put in, not quite as good there, but put some dates in. Email. Put in the email address I want it to go to, and I'll say timlenar@yahoo.com. Then some numbers, search query, test. I think what we'll see is that if we don't put in valid data here, it actually will tell us that it's not valid. Okay, now this is another nice thing here with these values, which you didn't get before. In the past, you would have to validate this with JavaScript, and now you no longer have to. I don't know if anyone's got experience doing that, but that's really nice. So now you can actually put in a format that you want to use. And let's try, you see here I fixed the URL and added the HTTP to it. If I click submit, let's see what happens. Oh, it still doesn't like something. I think it wants a space. So you can see it's very picky. Redirection status, okay. So it says it was redirected to my server, which should be the case. And I sent it to my Yahoo address. I probably should have sent it to this one, but that's okay. It's like a bunch of you already put in your attendance. Let's see. Oh, sorry. I'll go through that example again. You guys didn't see that, huh? All right. Well, let me show you what happened here, and we'll just send it again. I entered all this information. I entered something that was invalid, let's say on the phone number, and I click submit, and this points out here that you've entered something incorrectly. So, anyone who's ever done field level validation before knows, and I'll change this here. It would do the same thing on this. If I forgot to say, if I mistyped or something like that, and click submit, it worked. Oops. I guess it's not perfect. Probably if I left that out, it would Okay. Which also, by the way, what I mentioned was I went in and I viewed the source, and in Opera you can not only view the source, but you can modify it. And I'm sending it again to that same script, testmail.php. I actually made some changes to it, and I don't know how well you can see that, but basically it's going to give us everything on the form. Okay, now so if I submit this, it's going to submit to my email address. Okay, because the URL was redirected. It's interesting. It doesn't look like it came to me yet. I wonder why. Well, that email does not seem to have come. Unless it's in my spam. No, please click the link to go there. Like a bunch of you got thrown into my spam. It does happen. Oh, that's probably it right there, actually. An inbox. Oh, there they are. I'm gonna assume, well, we didn't get anything. Well, yeah, Michael, when Opera edits the code, it edits a local copy only. It doesn't go and save it on the server. It can't do that. You're creating a local copy only. So the way you would get the original back would be just to refresh the browser. And actually, that may have been what my problem was. Let me see. So if you go into View Source, oh, I see. You know what the problem here is? None of these input items have ID or name tags. That's why I'm not getting any of them. Ah! They're not going to work.